Hey guys, I am Dimension Jumper, and today I'll be doing my top 5 boss or enemies that would have made very cool roaming bosses in both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Now, with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, they brought in roaming bosses, which are basically bosses you can find out in the wild um, that are outside of dungeons. So you got Gleeoks, Stone Taluses, Hinoxes and Staunoxes, Flux Constructs, that sort of thing. And you can fight a variety of them, and they all range in different difficulties. And this video is just me going over some of the enemies that you could fight in previous games, and just talking about how they could work, or what would have been cool if they were their own roaming boss in the games. So yeah. So for number 5 is a Magmanos. I think I'm saying that right, and it's the giant lava hand. You can fight in the Fire Sanctuary in Skyward Sword. Now, this would have really worked in mainly in the Goron section of of both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and I think that would have been so cool because like I think it would have really worked with the whole fire element to the game, and they were I think if they were brought into the game, they could have been updated in terms of like because in Skyward Sword they're just there to like lift platforms for you, and then later on just progress the way in terms of the dungeon. But I think if they were roaming bosses, they could like summon several fireballs at you. They could grab a bit of the earth and just chuck it at you. They could be like two of them that could like kind of like trying to squish Link in between their palms, and that would have been such a cool way of fighting a boss if they were brought into Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. And plus, there would be different ways you could fight them in both games. So in Breath of the Wild, you could use your ice arrows, whilst in Tears of the Kingdom, you could have used the water hydrant that you could use, and yeah, that would have been so cool. Or just use any of the like other icicle or ice based weapons you could use in the game in terms of Tears of the Kingdom. And I think that would have been so cool. I think it would have just been a cool, unique way to bring back an old mini boss. So yeah, for number 4 is King Dodongo. Now, this boss, would have been really cool to have seen it being brought back into the games, especially with Tears of the Kingdom, because King Dodongo is such a really well-known boss. I think if we exclude Ganondorf, because he's like a well-known final boss, as well as boss in general, King Dodongo is up there in terms of well-known bosses. I think the only other one that I can think of is Goma, and I think they have both appeared in a good variety of Zelda games in terms of boss fights. And I think King Dodongo would be similar to bosses or roaming bosses like the Hinox, where you can see a whole bunch of them scattered around the world. And yeah, I think mainly around the Elden area and maybe the grasslands of Hyrule, maybe that's where you could probably see them. And yeah, but I think overall these could be too close to Gleeoks because they're both lizard like enemies in design. And I think in terms of roaming bosses, both I think the Dodongo would be too much like the King Gleeoks, or as well as the Gleeoks as a whole, because of I don't know. I just think one or the other. I think it would have been cool to see King Dodongo, but yeah, I think, and especially when it comes to like his attacks and stuff like that. But I think also be quite similar to the Foxes as well, because the Foxes do have that whole breathing in attack. So yeah, I think it really depends on how well the King Dodongos could have been implemented into the game. So yeah, for number 3 is Manhandler. Now this boss, I would say, would have thrived so well in both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, just because of its design, because it's basically this multi-headed Deku Baba, and it's basically just roams about the area that you see it in, and I think this would have worked so well in both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, because you could see, like, let's say, this giant plant-like thing, and it's got a bunch of stuff like apples or hearty durans, carrots like swift carrots and dew carrots, and in actuality, it's a manhandler, and that would have been so cool as a boss fight or a roaming boss fight, because it's got such rare and cool and interesting stuff that you need to help you get extra hearts, or replay or refill stamina, or replace or will not replace stamina, but like refill it, as well as getting temporary stamina, and either getting, like, defense up or a attack up, that sort of thing. And I think the manhandler would have been such a cool, unique boss fight, and yeah, and I could have wished it just. I think it's one of those boss fights I just wish could have been in the games, and just one of those. I would say manhandler is one of those missed opportunities. So yeah, for number 2 is Moldorm. Now, Moldorm is one of those sort of like jokey troll bosses that you find whenever you find Moldorm in a Zelda game, and it is quite got the title Trolldorm, because in the very first game that it appeared in, A Link to the Past, it would always a lot of the time it would just knock you off the edge of this boss arena, and you have to go all the way back up just to fight it again, and that's quite annoying. And I think with the way it moves, this would have been a cool roaming boss in both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, because it's basically this giant worm-looking thing, and you basically have to try and hit its tail, and I think it would have worked well in, like, pretty much, I would say, every area. You could find like 2 or 3 in each area, so you could find a fire Moldorm, an ice Moldorm, an electric Moldorm, a regular Moldorm, that sort of thing. But similar with King Dodongo is, I think with Moldorm, it's too similar to the Moldugas that you fight in the Gerudo area, because of how they're designed, because they're these giant worm-looking things, and yeah, it would have been too similar to them. So yeah, even though I think overall Moldorm would have been a cool boss, but I think it would have been too close to the Moldugas. But I wouldn't mind it if they would have still been brought into the games as a whole. But yeah, I don't really mind. And for number 1 is the Big Eye Plant. Now, this is a mini boss that you fight a few times throughout Phantom Hourglass. The first time you fight one is before you enter or go to the island with the Temple of Courage, after you've collected the key that leads to the dungeon. And the second one is, I believe, around the island where the fisherman is, I believe, or the guy with the mermaid, or the fake mermaid anyway. And yeah, I believe that's where you fight the other one. And I think this would have been a really cool fight. This would have been similar to like the Stone Taluses in the game. So you've got like a fire one, you've got an ice one, you've got a regular one, and with Big Eye Plant you could have like a water based one, because they're mainly the two you find is mainly in water. But you could also find them in the grassy area of Hyrule, so like the main center of Hyrule, and maybe you can find another one in the ice area, so like in the Gerudo Highlands or in the Heba region. And that would have been so cool, just like seeing this boss being designed and being fought in a new way, similar to the Magmanos, in terms of like if they were brought into Breath of the Wild, into the Kingdom. And I think with Big Eye Plant, it could have summoned minions or something, and yeah, it would have been so cool just to see that sort of boss or mini boss being brought over as a roaming boss in the game. So yeah, so that's been my top 5 enemies that could have been really cool living bosses in both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video.